that, you set your good pump and then stretch 15 seconds after you set. It's supposed to be all work out like that. Keep doing that, that's what gives the results. Anything else? Yeah.
There's a lot of supplements out there. In your view, which are essential?
The main thing I rely on amino acids in 3 form. I take one called Super Sports, put out by Monteith, and I've been using that for nearly 20 years now. And I take maybe 9 to 15 a day. I take them right before I eat, or I take them between meals with carbohydrate. And I think they're helpful. I have taken protein supplements. I've had a whey protein, but there's sort of a meal replacement, and it all works. It all depends on what you want to spend your money on. So they're all good. So budget your time and your finances accordingly. Yes.
I was wondering why you do pull legs then push instead of push-pull legs. Is there an advantage of doing the back, biceps first instead of chest, shoulders, triceps first on day one? Is there an advantage doing pull first versus push first?
Well, I think whatever you do first, you're going to focus more on. You're going to concentrate better. But don't do pull-push legs. Don't train upper body 2 days in a row. Put the leg day in between. And if you do that, doesn't matter what you do first, the pull or the push. Whatever one you want to focus more on. Just don't do it the one day after the other. That's called the 3-way split. And I think that's the way it all breaks down through after a while. It all comes down to that. After you've been training a while, it's that routine. So I know it's that way.
Thank you.
Anything else? Yes, sir.
I got a non-training question. How was it beating Arnold in '68 for the universe? How'd that feel?
It was great. I mean, that was my goal, was to win the show. And I sort of knew that I would do it because a friend of mine, Jim Haslett, who was AAU Mr. America, competed with him the week before in London. And he said to me when I saw him, he said, "Don't worry about Arnold. He's big and smooth." I was more concerned about Ricky Wayne, who was in shape. It turns out Ricky Wayne didn't compete, but Arnold did, and managed to beat him. The judges for that were experienced judges like Joe Nista, Chuck Sipes, and so they called it the way they saw it. I was really in shape for that. I just won Mr. America the week before, and I was in even better shape the week after that for Mr. Universe. So it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. Yes.
You mentioned abdominals every day. What do you feel like is a good range of sets?
Can you speak louder? I can't.
You mentioned abdominals daily. How many sets per day do you feel like is a good amount for abs?
Well, generally what I would do is something for lower abs, like leg raise or hanging knee up, 4 sets of 25. Sit-ups or punches, same 4 sets of 25. And seated twist, usually 100 straight out, so it would be maybe 300 reps total on ab work every day. It's always on a pretty good diet too. I find if you want to have good abs, you have to stay on a decent diet. Yes, sir.
When you were in top condition and you did the vacuum pose, how long could you hold your vacuum pose?
It would vary. The more I did it, the longer I could hold it. I could probably hold it for 20 seconds, but if you're in competition and really you're going to have to hold it for a good 10, 15 seconds. And it's really a good pose to bring out definition. Like use serratus muscles. Those are the jagged muscles, about 10 inches below your armpit. It turned out to be one of my best poses. So I would finish with that.
And with that one, you remember it?
Yeah.
Nice.
I remember it was the 1970 Mr. Universe in London, and I was doing my routine, and I was doing the vacuum pose in the middle of my routine. You know, who was watching me, came up to me, and he said, you should do that one last, because it's your best pose. You want to leave somebody with that. Whatever you do last tends to stick with people. Also, first one, the first one, and remember, because it's the first one, and the last one called the recency effect. The first and the last one is important. Anything else, anybody else? Yes.
So you have a diet, it's pretty much all day thing. What was your diet like when you were training to food shows?
I followed a low carbohydrate diet. I would get 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. So if I weighed 200, it was 200 grams of protein. And for carbs, I would get less than 100 grams of carbs a day. And I tend to get more of my carbs earlier in the day, so I build them up as the day went on. I would not load up on carbs late in the day. They were basically more energy purposes, so they try to get them early up. Anything else? Yes.
Generally for any body part,
Can you cut down?
what was your rep ranges for training? Was it like 10, 12, 15?
Usually between 8 and 12. And I tended to go down in reps and up in weight. If I did 3 sets, it would be 12 reps, 10 reps, 8 reps. If I did a 4, it might be 6 reps.
And then what's the dirtiest you ate during the whole?
What's the what?
Like the most unclean you ate for building up muscle? Do you ever eat anything unclean today?
Depends on what you mean by unclean. I didn't eat junk food, but I did imbibe usually wine, or something when I did when I was competing. But other than that, no. We stay pretty clean on the diet. Yes. Yes. Can you speak louder?
So my son needs to have a meeting and 13 years old, and he expressed to me that he wants to follow this path of bodybuilding. So what would you recommend to him? He's starting to get in and he just wants to follow this path. What would you recommend as a 13-year-old? He's starting to you.
Well, I think there's 2 things you could do. The most basic one is a full body routine 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Maybe 10, 12 exercises altogether. And then graduate up to a 2-way split routine. You train upper body one day, legs the next day. Might be upper body Monday, Thursday, legs Tuesday, Friday. And then that leads its way up to a 3-way split routine, which for me was always back biceps, forearms, pulling muscles day 1, legs day 2, chest, shoulder, biceps day 3, rest day 4. Those are the 3 routines that I do. Anything else? Yes. Speak up. The year I beat him? Well, I went by the feedback from the judges. They were all very experienced judges. And the thing about that show is I was in great shape for that, and he wasn't. So he got to be in really good shape after that, and we had to deal with the leader. And I didn't. I was teaching school. I had no special privileges. So he had everything at his disposal. So eventually got to be really, really good because he trained all the time. So I was glad I was able to do it.
Yeah, so talking about your early days when you got more or less started in training out here in California, I know you trained, and I see this a lot with a guy named Vince Serrano, and his guiding, his training, things like that. I know you were with him, Arnold was with him for a little bit. How did that affect you going forward as far as the knowledge, training, everything in between for the rest of your career? 'Cause you were pretty young, right, when you first started with Vince?
I turned that Vince's gym for a couple months when they were shooting footage for Pumping Iron at Gold's Gym. It was sort of a madhouse, and I couldn't get the kind of work out of it. So I drove over to the living center. I drove over to Vince's gym in Studio City and worked out. It was great, you know, he has some nice equipment. And I liked Vince, he was a character, and a lot of knowledge. So, it was a good old days.
Well, I knew that he had some pretty extreme views, or at least how he presented himself, and he kind of inspired some people. So I was just interested in like how he trains. He didn't like squats, he didn't like music, he didn't know all of those things, and he'd throw guys out of the gym. So it's just kind of an interesting guy that, you know, is part of the history of
Yeah.
bodybuilding. So
Well, that was his way of doing things. He didn't have a squat rack in the gym. It's not how I trained. I trained out cooking at Gold's Gym. Squats were guys like Larry Scott and John Howard trained there. They got to be top of the game.
did he talk a lot about his assisted squats? He's a little bit more in assisted squats instead of back squats. Is that his way of building up the quads?
Yeah, they did lots of assisted squat. It's basically, you know, it's a straight squat lean back, forward lean, and I quite like it now. And you can use weight, but not a lot. You can isolate your quads pretty well. Can't really- Yeah. Pardon? For sissy squats, I don't really do them very much. I mean, I did them in the past, but you know, I basically do regular squats. I hold the pumps down, put the bar on my shoulders. That's how I do it. Okay. Anything else? Yes.
Training calves, what would be your rep range and sets?
Calves?
Yes.
I think calves, you have to really train in a special way because of all the walking and running. So I think when you train calves, you want to get a burn on every set. And it usually comes in 15 to 20 rep range. And, you know, 3 times a week is good, or even 2 times a week.
How many sets would you look at?
6 to 9 sets total. You know, a lot of things work in a training session. Just because I say that's what I did, that doesn't mean there are other things that work too. You gotta find out what works best for you. Yeah. I'm not sure I understand, it's asking about injuries.
What is the best way to take care of injuries?
Best way is don't get them. If you do, you want to do therapy. Best therapy is, you know, go to somebody who can give you things like ultrasound, like a chiropractor. They usually have ultrasound machines. I have an ultrasound machine which I use when I'm training hard. Basically, it sends sound waves deep into the muscle, it heats it up, and then I would follow with ice. So I think heat followed by ice is a really good way to do therapy for your muscles and your joints. So, you know, the thing is you gotta make your body last and don't do things that are dumb. I mean, don't injure your joints by going too heavy. Always warm up, stretch between sets, be sensible about the whole thing. Anything else? Yeah.
You had mentioned that you have 4 days splits. What would you do on your rest days? Because for me, I like to be more, like on my rest days, I like to do stuff. I kind of support my body. So I was wondering, how would you go about your rest days? 'Cause, you know, you have to do a lot of stuff. So what would you do on your rest days? What would you do? What would you do on your rest days? What would you do on your rest days? What would you do on your rest days?
Well,
Well, I try to rest and not do much of anything else. One of my hobbies is archery. I would maybe shoot a little bit of archery on that day. Jesse comes over, we shoot quite a bit together. And, it's very relaxing and it's good to build focus. That's about it. Yes.
How did you stay so focused during your prep for the Olympias? During some of your biggest shows, how did you stay focused? What were some of your tricks?
I was focused because I had a goal. I think if you have a goal, that does it all for you. You know, you have that focus that keeps you on the path. You do it correctly enough for this and get great workouts. Because you're going in the show to win it. And if you deviate from that, you've got some good chances.
You really had a competitor in you, didn't you? Not a competitor in you.
Well, yeah, I did. But it paid off. I managed to win everything that I set my goal with. Anything else? Yes, sir.
Creatine, you consider that to be essential or useful?
What?
Creatine, what's your opinion? Creatine.
I've taken it, but I don't currently take it. Creatine is one of the steps in the Krebs energy cycle where your body converts carbohydrate into ATP. And you might find it good for getting a boost, but I don't think it's absolutely necessity to take it. It's not going to hurt it, it's healthy, really. But I don't think you have to. What else? Yes, sir.
In the 81 Olympia with the controversy, Arnold coming back and all that, what's your opinion on who really won that show?
Well, I wasn't there. I didn't compete that year, so it's hard for me to say judging from photos. I think the one guy that was overlooked is Danny Padilla.
Yeah.
Was in great shape for that.
What about Mike Menzer that year?
I don't know if he was in that or not that year.
Yeah, the 80s. 80, 81.
Yeah, I don't think he was there that year. Yeah, Menzer was a competitor of mine. He was formidable. Anything else? Yes, sir. I would sip water. I would sip water the day before and the day of competition. I would stop drinking water. You want to have some water in your the day of the show I would, but not too extreme. And I never did anything too extreme because I think if you do, you suffer one way or another. So if you prepare adequately, you don't have to. That means starting far enough out so you don't have to result in extreme things. Yes, Dr.
Quick question. So, on season, how many hours would you say you stay for each? 2 hours, is it not enough? 4 hours too much? How many hours would you say for each on-season prep and then off-season prep for me?
How many hours of training for training?
Right.
Most I would train would be 2 hours. And when I really got close and was training really hard, I would break up to an hour and 15 minutes in the morning, and an hour and 15 minutes in the late afternoon. That's the most I did. Yes.
What did Arnold and Michael Colombo teach you about life?
Nothing.
Great answer, Fred. What do you teach them?
I don't know. I remember one of Arnold's quotes, he told me, he says, it doesn't matter what you eat, just so eat a lot of it. And I was thinking, well, that doesn't work for me. But Arnold was a character, he was trained really hard. He was very focused when he was in the gym. it's hard to be there because you're so focused. I taught him math when he was going to college. Sent him on to City College. I put him in math. Okay, yes.
Thank you. What are your thoughts on Mike Metzger's style of training, like those high intensity, low volume?
High intensity, low volume, it never worked for me. I always did more than that. It wasn't extreme high intensity nor extreme volume. I'm one that avoided extremes. I think that, you know, if you're resorting to extremes, you suffer consequences.
Isn't that what Michael says? Stimulate, don't obliterate.
That makes sense. You know, another thing is longevity. Where is Mike Mentzer now? He's dead. Might say, you went to ultimate failure. You did. So I don't believe in that.
What was your rep tempo like? Was it more pump style? Or was it more like slow and control, like pauses at the top, pauses at the bottom, with a slow control negative? What was your rep tempo like?
I kept it going. It was maybe a 1 second positive and a 2 second negative. Negative was always a little bit slower than the positive, and it was always rhythmic. I believed in rhythm. And then, of course, stretching between sets. The other thing is I didn't talk between sets. I'd go to the gym when the loud mouths weren't there early in the day, because for me that was a distraction, and I didn't want to be distracted. What else? Yes, sir.
Did you have any mentors prior to your success in bodybuilding?
I had some. When I was in Pennsylvania training back there, there was a guy who opened up what he called Figure Tone Health Studios, and I trained with him for a while. He had some radical philosophies, which I sort of did, but not really that much. Then when I moved to California, it was Arnold was a big influence on my training. He was very, very methodical. He would come by my apartment, and we'd go to the gym together, and then we'd go to the beach after that. So I did have some people, but I never relied on anybody in my training. I always was sort of on my own, sort of. I was always a solo act.
So when you went into the gym, did you have a frequency workout plan?
Yes.
You did. And it was from you though, right?
Yeah. I knew what I wanted to do.
That's been good.
Yeah, it worked.
Yes, Mr. Gilbert.
How many pounds would you put on a year, Ross?
Not much. You know, if I competed at 190, my best competitive body weight was 190. And in the off season, I weighed about 196. So it really wasn't much. I stayed close to my competitive weight. You know, because I really wasn't that interested in bulking up and then training down. I tried that once. I went up to 220. And you know, the thing is, I ended up just losing a lot of extra tissue that I didn't need anyway. You know, when you bulk up, most of that weight goes in your thighs and your butt and your waist, in the central part of your body. You don't really get a lot of stimulation in you know, peripheral areas like your arms, your forearms, your deltoids, and your calves. So, you know, I always went for shape rather than, you know, using a lot of weight in the off season.
I mean, your competition weight just go up like a pound or two a year, or?
Roughly, it sort of remained the same after a while. I don't think I ever got over 190 very much when I competed. But that's proved to be the best weight for me. You know, you can't go by body weight, really. I learned that for me. You know, wasn't about how much I weighed. It was about how much, what I looked like. And so for me, I took a lot of photos and then studied the photos and see what the photos looked like, and what my strong points in the photos were, and what my weak points were, and then made changes accordingly. Anything else? Yes.
What was probably one of the most memorable moments at the competition that really ignited your passion for bodybuilding, even more so?
There were a number of memorable moments. Would be, of course, winning the title. I was after. The first time that happened was, I think, 1972. I think I won, 1969, I won Mr. World in Belgium. And then the next year, 1970, I won NAB of Mr. University in London. And then in 72, I won Professional Mr. University in London. And in 77, 78, 79, I won Mr. Olympia. And those were the big events for me.
If you could go back, would you do anything different?
It's hard to say. I don't know. I mean, I know it worked, but it'd be sort of hard to replicate that. I would try to avoid injuries for one thing. Don't get injured.
And bodybuilding's kind of changed, would you say? Kind of to what it was in the 70s, 80s now, even though look is a little different. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really try to make those comparisons. I don't know what it's like to be a competitor now. I just know what I see, on Instagram and Facebook. And a lot of these guys, I mean, they look, they're probably more advanced than most people were when I competed. Guys like Chris Bumstead, he got 235, sort of like in the auto category. Michael Hearn's another one. Mike is extremely strong. He's trained at my place. He's come down to train, and he's incredibly strong. And I think if you wanted to just focus on competitive bodybuilding, he'd do quite well. But there's other things to focus on, like getting parts in movies and films. And I think he's more interested in that. Anything else? Yes.
How long were your training programs going into, say, Olympia? So 3 months, or how far away did you start your training?
Usually 3 months. I would get real serious the last 3 months before. But the 3 months before that, I would start training harder to get ready for the final 3 months. So it's like a total of 6 months altogether. 3 months to get ready for the final 3 months. And then the final 3 months where I would go all out.
How would it progress throughout those 3 months while you're training? Would it be based on feel? Would it be based on add another set, add another reps, more weight, just add peaking?
I would cut down on rest periods between sets. I get more done in rest time, and I would maybe do extra reps. I had 2 methods. I call them the STAR method. One was the weight STAR method, which was on my last set of an exercise. I would do 1 or 2 reps more than I had done previously. Okay, that's weight STAR. And the other was time STAR. I do the same amount of sets in less time, with not a minute off the workout. So that way I was always doing something to put more demands on my body.
Kind of like a force rep?
I would sometimes do force reps, but my form was always pretty good. Anything else? Yeah.
What were some of the hardest things you had to go through as a professional bodybuilder?
think, you know, I was teaching school full time. I was competing, so it was sort of balancing my workload and then also going to graduate school with training in the gym. And I was one of the few people that was doing that. Most of the guys were just training. And it wasn't until 1977 that I retired from teaching school and started training full time. And then I won the Olympia 3 times, so I never went back after that. Yeah, over here.
When it comes to protein between poultry, seafood, and red meat, do you have a preference? Or where do you rank those three?
Well, I eat both of them. No, not a lot of red meat, some. A lot of, I put priority on fish, chicken, and lean beef. I have some of those every day. And I also keep my carbs down. Usually it's about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight and a half gram of carbs per pound of body weight. Yes.
What is your take on doing more free weight stuff versus machine?
I do them both, you know, it all depends on how good the equipment is. Like in a gym like this, you have so much to choose from. You know, you can't beat 3 weights, but if you have machines and 3 weights, that's perfect. So like, you know, you can't complain about having a gym like this for your training because there's everything here. So select what feels the best, what do you get the best workout with, what do you get the best pump with. Anything else? Yes, we got it. Do I ever have any muscle imbalances? Well, you know, I took photos to see how everything was developing, so I never let it get to the point where anything was that much out of place. So if I did, I would just do more for it. You know, I did a lot of dumbbell training too, which tends to take care of that dumbbell work. Yes, sir.
Zane, you're often called the most symmetrical bodybuilder of all time. What do you think about that? And what do you think about that kind of thing?
Well, I welcome the compliment. But you know, what is symmetry? Basically, if you look at what it is, basically, in people, it's bilateral symmetry. It means your left side is the same as your right side. Mine isn't. You know, so it might look that way because of the way I present myself. And so I present myself so that it looks that way. There's other forms of symmetry like radial symmetry, but people don't have that. That's like starfish. You have radial symmetry about a point. So I coined the term sort of bodybuilding symmetry. It's a combination of bilateral symmetry and proportion. Proportion really is what it's all about. So somebody says he's very symmetrical. A lot of times they mean proportion. Symmetry and proportion are 2 different things. Symmetry basically means left and right side balance. Bilateral symmetry. Proportion means that everything fits and flows together. So you gotta have both. Yes, back here.
I had a question. Did you always take like a scheduled rest day in your program, or would you like skip it if you like felt really good one day?
I would say that I always did it. You know, I pretty much followed the schedule all the time. But I tried to get to the gym according to my plan. I tried to stick with the schedule, especially if I was training for something. Then it becomes more urgent that I'd stick with it. In the off season, maybe not as much.
Thank you.
Yes. What was your split like?
What was what?
Your split, like your chest, back, arms, shoulders. What was it like?
Oh, the split.
Yeah.
Basically, the one that I followed the most was pulling muscles, back biceps and forearms, day one, legs, abs and thighs, day two, day three, pushing muscles, chest, shoulders, and triceps, abs every day, bit of aerobics every day, and that would be the rest on the day four. And that's the system I follow most of the time. Yes.
Talk to us about posing, what went through your mind as you piece together your posing routines, what you look for with the body, just that a little bit about posing.
Posing routine? Well, I took a lot of photos, and according to what the photos look like, that was what my posing routine would be. I was fortunate that my wife was a good photographer. She took, especially toward the latter part of my career, she took a lot of photos of me. Before that, some of the reader photographers like Marty Seller took a lot of photos of me. It was really good. So taking photos for the Reader magazine is always a good idea. Jimmy Caruso was also a reader photographer. Taking indoor shots with Jimmy Caruso was always great. You know, the more you can do that, the more photographers you use, the better off it is. But make sure you get photos for yourself when you do them. Don't let me want copies. Yes, sir, here.
What's your dieting? What's the main thing that helps you stay lean year round?
Not to eat junk food. Not to go off on a diet. Not to eat refined carbohydrates. No pastries, candy, or cake. Not lean proteins like lean beef, chicken, fish. Minimum of alcohol. So that's basically what I did all the time.
With your posing practice consistently, you do so much time per day, so much time to pose.
Well, posing, I would basically hold each shot for a count of 10. And then I would gradually move into the next pose. And I would string them together so that the movement was smooth. And it's basically let your feet get into the right position first, and then follow through with your upper body. So, just that practice.
You flex your lower body first, and then your upper body, or
No, I would flex everything at the same time. Yes.
Did you ever train like Phil Pearl or Steve Reeves or any guys?
No, I never did. I mean, I trained at Bill Pearl's gym, and I met Reeves, but I never trained with him. He was sort of before my time, so I got good advice from him.
I like his whole look.
Yeah, that whole generation before me was great. I mean, those guys were really fantastic.
Is that Stern's gym in North Park? Is that North Park?
And that was Leo Stern's gym that Bill Pearl trained at. And then he opened up his own place. He passed away in the last year, I think it was 91.
93. I think you posted.
93. Well, those are a lot of years, a lot of years. You know, if you could make it to your 90s. I agree.
So when you were doing your posing, you were saying earlier you had the photographs and stuff. Nowadays we have the immediacy of our phones, we can make videos, looking around to get that feedback. What was the delay for you? I mean, the same difficult to develop and stuff like that. What was going through your mind between just taking the photographs, flexing, and then pulling on and getting to see that feedback on the photograph?
Well, there was a delay between the time you did it and the time you saw what it looked like. So I just went by what I had. I got feedback from people who were experts. My wife wasn't really best expert around, but she gave me very honest feedback. Photographers like Artie Zeller, Weeder photographer, Joe Weeder himself. Very, very critical and very honest. I would have sessions with them, but not unless I was really in good shape. Because they would tell me about it. Yes.
What do you think about the new nutrition methods nowadays, like counting macros, everything like that?
What about,
What do you think of that?
I don't know exactly what it is. Should be more specific?
Oh, like counting your calories, more specific, like bringing it down to like carbs, fats, and protein.
What I did is I didn't count calories that much, but I would say most of the time it was under 2,000 calories a day. And it was 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight, so it was right around 190, 200 grams of protein a day, and less carbohydrates than that. And fat, I didn't eat pure fats like butter or cream. Whatever fats occurred in the protein naturally is fat content I got.
Like,
That's the extent I did it. Yes.
What's your ideal amount of time to be spending in the gym?
Say it again louder.
What's your ideal amount of time to be spending in the gym? Like, 1 hour, 2 hours, like, or how long should your exercises be taking?
How much time should you spend in the gym?
Yeah.
For me, it was about an hour, 15 minutes, hour and a half. That was it. Anything else? Yes.
So a good friend of mine, you go out, you train with the original Bolt, Rick Tracy talks a lot about you guys outside of the gym. Was there a lot of, what were some of the things you guys did to just kind of have a good time, relax, anything away from the gym? Go to the beach, hang out with friends, love, what you guys do, some of the old days.
Are you familiar with the expression, fly on the wall? That was Rick Grayson. He was there, but he really wasn't one of the top guys. Not somebody that I would seek out, ask for advice. But he certainly was there a lot. Because he lived right across the street.
What you guys do for fun outside of the gym? Everybody, all you guys, Arnold, the original group. Outside of working out, go to the beach, anything like that.
Well, I don't know what they did. But what I did is I was basically teaching school, going to graduate school. I shot archery. I shot some archery with Arnold too. I got him interested in archery. But it was pretty much centered around the gym, training, always training oriented. And yes.
Was retiring from professional bodybuilding difficult for you, or were you ready?
I was ready. I don't miss all that hard work.
Do you still miss it?
No. Why?
A lot of work, that's for sure.
How do you know?
I work out myself.
Oh, all right. Excuse me.
I'm at a show once or twice.
Well, I'll tell you what I noticed is all that grueling training. I remember one year, I had a house in Palm Springs, and I would go there on the weekends to get sun. And I was standing in the living room, ready to go out and get a tan, and I said to myself, oh shit, another 6 weeks of torture. That's how I felt. So I went out and I sat into this banana chair, that they called them, and it was astroturf and it was wet, and it slid into the pool, and I hit the pool, the lip-on pool that stuck out right behind my testicles and smashed my urethra. rushed to the hospital, had a catheter inserted, laid on the couch, gradually healed, and then 5 weeks later I was competing. Crazy.
Not really tough.
Oh, never did. But you know, I have very strong will and intention. My mistake is I relied on Arnold's advice. Because most of the time when he retired, he told me he's going to win Olympia a bunch of times and then never go back to it. So, you know, he did when he retired a bunch of years. And I asked him what he thought I should do after I had that injury. He said, you should go to, it was Australia. He says, you should go to Australia and defend your title. And I said, are you going there to compete? He said, no, I'm going, but I'm just going to do commentary for CBS. But then when I got there, he's there with his gym bag, so I knew he was going to compete. So, you know, he was the kind of guy that would do anything to get you off your base, to sidetrack you. But I knew that. It wasn't my style, but that's the way it was.
You still went, right?
Huh?
You still went?
I went, sure.
It's kind of good that
I already had my plane ticket. So I planned ahead for these things.
were you and Arnold more like friends or more like just people who knew each other professionally?
We were friends. You know, we were friends in the gym, friends outside of the gym too. Competition, we were friends if we weren't competing against each other. And there were times when we were.
But didn't he come to you to get your advice on how you were winning before he started getting some bigger titles?
He did.
How did you feel about that?
I was glad to help. Anybody that comes to me and asks advice, I'm glad to help them if they're sincere. So I've been doing that for quite a while now. Any other question?
What do you agree with the workout routine?
Say it again?
Workout routine, what is it like?
I didn't understand.
Like before your workout,
Oh, before my workout? Well, I would have something to eat about an hour and a half before my workout that was easily digested. And I usually train late morning, so that would be a combination of eggs, cheese, and whole grain toast.
any caffeine with that?
I would have small amounts of coffee. Yes. Yeah.
How much water would you drink daily? Did you have like a gallon?
I never get that way. I just let my nurse tell me what to drink. I never shortchange myself on drinking water.
Did you ever write anything down?
I wrote a lot of stuff down. It was mostly my workouts. I had journals that I kept. It was basically my workouts that were in the journals. I did keep notes on nutrition too. That was mostly mental when I knew what I was doing. So I've done it so much. And it was always about the same. So no need to keep writing the same thing down. What else we got? Okay. Spiritual aspect? Well, I meditate, and I say a mantra. Basically, my goal is to clear my mind. I'm influenced by Buddhist philosophy, probably more than anything else. But I think religion is a personal matter. If it helps you, fine. I don't go around and try to impose what my belief system is on other people. Yes.
What was your first magazine cover like? Were you shocked to get a magazine cover? Were you excited? How did you feel?
I was very excited. I forget what that was. I think it was Strength and Health magazine. I forget what year it was.
How about the one right behind you? Can you talk about that?
Muscle Fitness. Yeah, that was that shot was taken in 1976 when I was in great shape back here. So I was glad to get it covered.
Would you say of all the years that may have been your best year for shape? Do you have a best year that you would consider was your best shape?
Probably 1979. 76 was a great year too. I'd say 79 my best year, 76 right up there, 78 pretty good, 83 pretty good. 82 I was on the weak side, a little smooth. 80 not a great year, but I was in shape for all of it. But some years I had more definition, other years I had more mass.
Was it hard letting the muscle go? At that stage in your life when you realize your body is kind of no longer capable of moving so heavy? Or was it for you an easy thing to let go of, continue doing other things that you may find interesting in the gym and bodybuilding, having such large amounts of muscle?
For me, it was age 41, in 1983. I realized that, I should be hanging up right now as far as competition goes, because, I'm not going to get that much better, if at all. So it'd be better to focus on something else. And that something else was working with other people, training other people, helping them improve. And that's when I started, we called it Zane at first, and then it became the Zane experience, where we had a proper income experience, where I had a gym, and actually for a while people came and stayed there, and 5 days, 4 nights, and so.
Did you enjoy helping a lot of other people?
Yeah, trained as a teacher, so it's sort of natural for me to do that.
I should say you were teaching prior to this, you kind of almost full circle was teaching bodybuilding.
I taught for 13 years about mathematics.
What was the moment for you when you said, I am no longer a teacher, I am now a professional bodybuilder? Was there a specific moment that you said, I'm going to drop down to the skivvies and go to this on stage, and everyone's going to look out there? Was there a moment like that where you just like oh shit?
Well, for me, it was more like I'm a bodybuilder who teaches. So it was the same thing. I was still doing bodybuilding, but I was teaching along with it. I mean, for me, I never understood how you could do anything without practicing it, and by practicing it, you should be able to teach it as well. And in order to teach something, you have to know it very well. So, it all fits together. Anything else? Yes.
How were you able to actually track your nutrition?
Wait, can you talk louder?
How were you able to actually track your nutrients, such as carbs, fats, and protein?
I was able to train hard when I was teaching.
Track. Like take note. Like how were you able to know how many carbs you were taking and how much fat you were taking?
Well, I wrote it all down in journals that I had. But you do it enough times, you know what you're doing. So I really didn't have to keep close track of it. I pretty much knew what it was, because it becomes a habit. Yes, sir.
What was your eating schedule like? So having such a busy schedule with school and teaching and bodybuilding, how many times a day would you eat?
Well, like breakfast, and then snack, then morning, and then lunch, and then late afternoon a snack, and then the dinner. So it's like 5 times a day.
What did your family think of your bodybuilding? Were they as interested in it as you or no?
mother always supported it, because with her, anything I wanted to do was fine. My father did it so much, he thought I'd be better off cutting the grass. But then when I started winning things, he became very proud actually to carry around a picture of me as well to show his friends. So he appreciated it, although he was never really that forward.
I'd like to give you a compliment too. You said you're a teacher and also a bodybuilder. These days I've found a lot of people that see you and think you see yourself more as a multifaceted type of person. I believe it's commendable in today's day and age to not limit yourself and to still do what you love.
Well, I think it's a natural thing to be able to teach what you're doing, because you really know it then. You know, if you get really good at what you're doing, you know, it's second nature, you pass it on to other people. That was always my philosophy. To me, there's no secrets in bodybuilding. Share the information, because it's just going to help everybody as well as you. So that's always how I do it. What else? Anything else? Yes.
Yeah, I got a question. I work out of hospital a lot. 3 days split, 5 days off. I've seen I work like 10 hours shifts in the hospital, really doing taxes. What would you recommend?
You know, I hardly understood anything you said. Could you talk louder?
I said I work at a hospital, I'm 3 days split, my fourth day, I'm, doing 10-hour shifts, I work at UCSD, and it's very taxing. What would you recommend after workout?
Training in the hospital on your fourth day?
No, sometimes I work at the hospital a lot, so I'm talking about your 3 days split, like my fourth day, I could be working like a 12-hour shift at the hospital, so I wouldn't have less than that.
I'd say don't train on those days that you're training 12 hours at the hospital. Train on the days that you have more time, and that you feel more up to it. As long as you get in 3 days a week, regular workouts, you should be able to do pretty well.
And I'm also kind of diabetic, so.
Well, follow a good diet.
Excuse me?
Follow a good diet. And watch the simple sugars. So you're sort of motivated now to eat correctly. You know, yourself with the perils of diabetes. Yeah.
What's your favorite workout other than how?
Say that again.
What's your favorite workout other than?
My favorite workout for what? Well, hamstrings. Well, leg curls, basically, that was the main one. And then another one would be leg press with my feet high up on the platform. I had a horizontal leg press machine, and I would bring it back way back and push it out. And the other exercise would be stiff-legged deadlift, or good morning exercise, or hyperextension. They all get your hamstrings. And then there's a stretch called one leg up stretch, where you just put one leg up on an elevation and then a little forward. Anything else? Yes.
How did you meet your wife?
When I was teaching school in Florida, and this one pretty girl came up to me one day with Muslim actually and asked me to autograph it. And asked me, she said, "How would you like to meet my older sister?" So I said, "Yeah." And so I think that was the beginning of it. Never married by
That's really cool.
we're married now about 56 years. What's that?
Any marriage advice you give anybody after 56 years?
Well, you know, find somebody that has mutual interests as you do, that shares in you what you like to do, and something you have a mutual agreement on. That's important. You really brings you back over the gym, make sure that your girlfriend, wife to be, feels the same way.
Yeah, especially with bodybuilding, it's hard to find people that will support you.
Yeah. My wife nowadays is probably more motivated to train than I am. So, she pushes me all the time.
Would you say she's a big motivating force in your life?
Yeah. She always was, but maybe even more so now. She'll push me to train. I might not feel like it so much, but we have gym, underneath where we live. Very well equipped gym, so we go down there and train together. Let's see, anything else? Okay, I guess that's about it. Yeah. Okay, we're gonna see some slides, and I'll do commentary on them.